Hello, everybody. Welcome to our fall webinar. We're going to get started in a moment as the last people come in. In the meantime, as a housekeeping thing, I think your microphone should be muted, but if it's not, if you could just mute it for us right now, that way if a dog barks, a phone rings, a door opens and closes, or any of those other kids run through, it won't disrupt the presentation. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I said before, welcome to our webinar about autumn on the BC coast, or the Canadian Inside Passage as it's sometimes known. I'm Maureen Gordon. I'm one of the owners of Maple Leaf Adventures, and I've also worked as a guide on board for about 12 years, and then as a manager and a very lucky guest for the rest of the time. I've been working with the company for almost 25 years. With me here, I'm very fortunate to have Jeff Reynolds, one of our expedition leaders. Can you introduce yourself, Jeff?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff. I'm an expedition leader on Cascadia, one of the ships, but I've worked on all of them. Been with the company for about 10 years now, and it's an incredible place to work. And my background is mostly marine biology, but with this job, I've become an all-around guide and naturalist. So it's been a great ride.
Very beloved guide and naturalist. Very briefly, if you don't know about Maple Leaf Adventures, we are what is now known as an expedition cruise company on a very boutique or micro scale. We operate exclusively on the Pacific Northwest coast of North America in British Columbia and Southeast Alaska, and we've been doing so since 1986. We are local experts, and we're sort of fired by the passion of creating an incredible company with amazing people and being able to give them great employment while also protecting and giving back to the ecosystems that make this coast rich, and looking out for the people of this coast and our cultures. That's our history and mission in a nutshell. A little housekeeping before we get going. We are going to answer lots of questions. We hope to have lots from you by the end. You do not have to wait to the end to enter your question. If you look on your screen somewhere, there's a Q&A bubble or a button. If you click that, you can type your question into it. Corrine, one of my teammates, is monitoring this. So if you have a question with sound, you can put it in there and she might see it and answer you during. But then Jeff and I will go through the questions at the end all at once. So yeah, don't hold back. Leave us some good ones. All right, what are we going to cover today? First, we're going to talk about what's special about these trips and who they're for, and the autumn season itself, what's special about it. Then we'll go into the itinerary so you have an idea of what each trip entails, what's included in it. Then we'll take an overview through the ships and life aboard and ashore, and who your wonderful crew are, and then we'll do some closing about how you book, and there is a special offer for people who've attended the webinar, which we'll get to at the end, and then questions. Should take about 40 minutes to get through the information, and then the rest of the time for questions. So we'll see how well Jeff and I are at keeping to that. And I'm going to hand it over to Jeff to begin.
Yeah, what is unique about these trips? We have an incredible chance to have these adventures on smaller ships. So we get to experience these places amongst a small group of people. And whether you come with friends or not, you will leave with friends. And experiencing these places all together on such a small little ship just allows you to take things in a little bit more, not worry about getting in line or having too little time ashore. It's really at your pace that we go. And because we experience these things together, we get to, as guides at least, we get to kind of piggyback off of your just amazement in the places that we go to. And that gives us the passion to just share more with you. If you're interested in these little ship adventures, this is definitely the place to be. Swell is just this, yeah, just beautiful little ship that you can see the ship that see the coast from. And yeah, if you're I don't know, if your abilities aren't up to walking up into the forest or taking little hikes on the beach, you can always experience the whole trip from the ship as well. So that is always an option if you don't feel like you can get to shore. It's still a beautiful scenery to get to see along the way.
Yeah, and our trips are for probably people like you, people who like to learn, like to engage, and be travel at a small scale, have big adventures. And for people who don't mind sitting in the rain, if the chance is to view something wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll do this one if you like. Yeah, we just wanted to put this up front because there are still some people who are not familiar with the all-inclusive fares. There are many kinds of travel where you buy everything kind of a la carte piecemeal, whether it's a big ship cruise or hotels and so forth. Our trips and our prices are all inclusive because for us, once you come on board, we want you to just it's like you're our guests and we don't want all these transactions between us and your enjoyment of the place. So it is, everything is included in the fare that you pay. All right.
And BC is one of these incredible places you can come and discover new things every time. So like I said, 10 years on the coast, and still every trip I'm finding new places to explore. The geography of this place, especially the Great Barrier Rainforest and the trips we're going to be talking about along the Inside Passage, are just strewn with fjords, glacial fjords that have been carved out thousands of years ago, and leave these massive granite walls with trees growing on the steepest of shore of terrain, along with at the ends of all these fjords, where the rivers come to the end, you get these incredible estuaries that house older growth forests, estuary grasses, and then all the species that brings to the ecosystem. So whether it's taking a walk through the great temperate rainforest with old growth trees and ferns and mosses, to exploring the outer coasts, these exposed beaches, we get to get into these environments and see a little bit of each place on these trips, which is super unique. We cover almost 300 nautical miles on average each trip, and that brings us into a load of different places. And brings us to the season that we're talking about here and why autumn. And if you've tuned into the last few webinars, the spring and the summer, the autumn or the fall is just kind of the culmination of all of nature's bounty. So we have the returning of the salmon, and that is one of the main reasons why these ecosystems are so lush and healthy, is that these salmon are coming up to spawn, and they have to die afterwards, and that nutrient that they leave behind from their bodies gets distributed throughout the forests, and it just leaves an incredible lushness for us to enjoy. And yes, it is a season of waterfalls. You can't call this place the temperate rainforest without having a little bit of rain, and it recharges all these waterfalls and these fjords, and they are incredible to see. And at the end of the season, so summer, all the whales are starting to arrive into the fjords, or at the edge of the coast. But now in the fall, they're coming into the tighter fjords, feeding on the krill and the herring, and they are in huge numbers. They can't get any higher. This is the kind of culmination of all of the whales coming to the coast. And it's also the season of the bear, because the salmon are coming in, the crab apples are in ripeness. They're coming to the estuaries, and it's a good time to hopefully get a chance to see grizzly bears and black bears. And it's the season of migration. So we have massive flocks of birds of all different types coming through because they know the timing is right for the return of the salmon. And it's funny how many birds really agree on wanting salmon eggs. And so just a little highlight of the wildlife that we would see on these types of trips in the Great Barrier Rainforest and inside Passage. Like I said, the whales, it's also the time for mushrooms and other little fungi that are growing in the forest. We have the waterfalls, and the estuary ecosystem is incredible with the lichens. Here's some lichen growing from the trees that are usually, when you're in an estuary like this, the air quality is super high. So you get a plethora of different bryophytes, lichens, and forest ecology that grow. Then we get into these not so high, but alpine type bogs that are stunted in growth because of the high acidity and low nutrient level. And these usually you only encounter in high alpine levels, but on the coast they occur quite close to the shoreline because there's such little kind of soil nutrients for them to grow in. And then the kelp forests are in full bloom, starting to accumulate a lot of growth on the forest themselves, call them the forest of the sea. And we have tons of intertidal life, these ochre stars, surf anemones, and they're gouging on the newly grown barnacles and mussels. And then, yes, like I said, the humpback whales are returning to feed on the herring, and we have a lucky behavior that we get to sometimes observe as the humpbacks bubble net feeding. Because the herring are so plentiful at this time, they've learned a way to corral these fish into a bubble net and come up to the surface. And we have been very lucky to see this behavior in the past 10 years I've been working. And the second biggest species of whale in the world and second biggest species of animal in the world is the fin whale, and they've been gracing our coast in this general area in the Great Barrier Rainforest, which we've been able to see, and orcas. So we have the big orcas or transients, and as well as the northern residents going through these waters, and we've always got keen eyes out on the bridge looking for these guys. And we're lucky to have a really great relationship with some of the researchers on the coast, the whale researchers, and we have a few stations that we actually get to go visit and learn from them. And on some of the itineraries, we even actually see some sea otters that are starting to return to the coast. These are the lucky little things to see if we have the keen eyes to see it. And then we have the harbor seal and the stellar sea lions that kind of dot the coast that we try to visit a haul out or two during our trips. And the infamous sea wolf or coastal sea wolf, we always are looking and we don't always see, but sometimes we do get a chance to see these beautiful wolves, especially in the early fall on the coast.
All right, and just briefly, for those who are not from this coast on the webinar, you may not be familiar with the incredibly rich cultural history that we have here on the coast of British Columbia and Southeast Alaska. Cultures that have been living here since at least the last ice age, possibly longer, nobody knows for sure. But to put that in perspective, that is so much longer than the civilizations we often learn about in Egypt or Mesopotamia, certainly Greece and those civilizations. So really long periods of time to evolve in this place and become a human expression and human culture of this place. And that's really, really amazing. And we get to experience that in many different ways. There's a lot of diversity along the coast. This shows the language grouping from the First Peoples map of BC. And we'll see material culture, which is things like petroglyphs or memorial poles, or, you know, at very low tide, clam gardens or regalia and so forth. That's one of the elements of Indigenous culture that our guides can show us. Oral culture as well. Obviously, there's ancient stories and ancient history that gets passed down through different guides, obviously, that we work with through our protocol agreements and other guiding agreements we have along the coast. Everything is a little bit different in different territories. And of course, the cultural guides that we're really lucky to work with. And Jeff, I just want to pass it back to you for a typical day and the first couple of itineraries.
Yeah, so just before we start on the itineraries, we try to keep certain things on the ship pretty standard. So if you've never been on a Maple Leaf adventure, then this will be a little bit of a good thing to know. So what happens when you're on a trip? How does the day go? And so normally start the day off with a little bit of coffee and a breakfast that's plated uh, based on your dietary requirements around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And that's usually times that we can get to shore or go wildlife viewing or maybe do a kayak after breakfast. There's usually a snack to keep everybody's energy levels high, and then a lunch at around 12:30. And the lunches, just like all the other prepared meals, are plated based on your dietary requirements. And then sometimes after lunch, we'll be transiting from one place to another, or have another short trip or a tender ride to go explore an estuary planned. Then, of course, we come back for another snack and maybe a little bit of kayaking before dinner, if we get to our anchorage in time. And then after dinner, normally we either just kind of sit around, relax, chat, or have a little bit of a presentation to get you guys ready for the next day. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how a day is broken down. Now, the autumn itineraries that we're going to be talking about uh, are as follows. So this kind of highlights the general area that we'd be going into. So the Whales and Wild Isles trip, Great Bear Rainforest, and the Great Bear Rainforest Kitlope Super Voyage on Cascadia is in that highlighted region there in the red. And on Maple Leaf and Swell, the Great Bear Rainforest experience covers that green area. Whales and Wild Isles on the Maple Leaf, that blue area. Now, keep in mind, all these regions give us a very similar experience. So each trip, try to cover the same things, just in different regions. And Desolation Sound and Fjords of BC on Swell and Cascadia takes place in that highlighted region as well. And in each one of the itineraries, you'll see a little example of where we go with little line drawn itinerary route. So don't worry if you aren't sure right now. And then in the Gulf Islands, we have the craft beer and culinary cruise on Swell, Wines and Islands on Cascadia, and the Gulf Islands in the fall experience on Maple Leaf down there on the bottom right. Right now we have a video that we're going to share with you. It's a really great experience from a guest that kind of depicts an experience on Maple Leaf,
Which is our sailing ship.
which is our sailing ship. And we will press play. And press play. right, we're back. All right, so the first trip up is the Whales and Wild Isles trip. And this is just an example itinerary that's on the website. And
This is like the transition from summer to fall, these first couple of trips, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we get to do these trips, we start our journey, especially south, and we get to explore quite a bit of the coast, ranging all the way from northern Vancouver Island and Port Hardy, all the way up to Kitimat. And another itinerary that happens in Prince Rupert, and I'll show you at the end of this little section. But the idea is this transition period, the whales have come in, the weather is starting to change for the fall, but it's still hanging in there with a few more sunny days. Chances to walk in the forest on this kind of extended route along the shore, the coast. We're covering a lot of ground. We're checking in on estuaries where the bears are starting to come into the estuaries, not necessarily for the salmon yet, even though they are starting to cut into the channels. But the roots are starting to pull the bears in from the rice root to the actual crab apples that are growing are starting to grow in the estuaries. They're coming down for that. And yeah, cruising these fjords all the way up and down the coast. And we do get a chance to check out some whale research station along the way, whether that's Cetacea Lab or on Finn Island. It is a place that we get to step in and learn from the researchers. And like I said, the whales are here, and we are just trying to find and hang out with these whales as they do their thing, sometimes breaching, sometimes feeding, and always looking for orca. This is their territory. And then getting out to, it is Whales and Wild Isles, and we are trying to get out to these wild islands because the weather's the best at this time of year in August for getting out to the exposed coastlines, where we could potentially get out for these walks, but also for this little jump rope with the kelp. But we're also looking for the sea wolf, which in this kind of late summer, early fall time, their sightings are a little bit higher. And of course, the nice long sunsets from the wild island sides are really beautiful to see. And we do get a chance to go visit some hot springs, if that's your thing. But even just the locations that we're going to see these hot springs is a beautiful place to be. So here's a little breakdown if you want to know kind of the region of where these trips happen. So here's a Cascadia trip from Prince Rupert to Kitimat, and that's just a sample itinerary route. But every trip changes, weather changes. We may go explore different places. And then you fly back to Vancouver from Kitimat, if that's clear. And then a Cascadia trip, Whales and Wild Isles, we have a 5-day trip that's flying to Kitimat, explore the outside, inside, and then head back. If that's your thing, you want to do a quick trip to the Great Bear, that is an excellent itinerary. And then the Maple Leaf offers a 9-day trip from Port McNeill all the way up to Bella Bella, and then back to Vancouver. So yeah, there's no shortage of options here. Incredible trips to get out and see the coast, especially when the weather is nice on the exposed shores. All right.
Just before you start the Great Bear, I think someone's got their microphone off mute.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind checking and muting your mic, there is some background noise happening right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, now we hit the Great Bear Rainforest, and these trips happen typically early September right into October, and you can see the mistiness beginning, hint, hint. So this is a sample itinerary again from the website, and you can see kind of where we go on one trip. We have many different itineraries, and you'll see this at the end. But the idea is we are going into the Great Bear Rainforest at the time of the salmon returning. We got migrations coming through, birds, and it is a time where the rains kind of need to increase so that the rivers swell, so that the salmon can get up the rivers. So we do anticipate rainy days, but also sunny days. And we head up into estuaries. We don't always have these beautiful sights of salmon jumping up waterfalls. These are in specific spots and very lucky shots, but they are heading upstream. And the bears are lining the rivers in hopes of grabbing one of these delicious meals. But along with the bears, there's a lot of other birds and wildlife that are attracted to the riversides. But grizzly bears, black bears are starting to make their way closer and closer to the rivers for these salmon eggs. These are the bread and butter. I've seen a salmon being taken out of the river with black bear grabbed a massive male and it just left it on the side of the river because it wasn't a female and it wasn't full of juicy eggs. And when the salmon runs are high, they have that chance to be picky. And the crab apples. So like I was saying in the Whales and Wild Isles one, the trip where the apples are starting to become plump, it's pulling these bears into the estuary, but they're also sticking around during the salmon season as well. So you might see a bear go for salmon and then have a dessert of crab apples.
Very healthy diet, really.
Very
We
healthy.
could all live like that, I think.
And you'll probably come back on the ship, have a delicious salmon dinner, and have dessert as well.
And maybe an apple.
And maybe an apple. The waterfalls, like I said, they were recharged, and there's some incredible sights to see on the coast with waterfalls. And we are getting into the places where we can never promise that we'll see the grizzly bears or the black bears. We are in the right place at the right time, and we spend the most amount of time to try to get sightings. And that's what we can promise, but you can see these photos are good indicators that we do end up seeing some incredible wildlife.
In case you're wondering, that bear is not dead, it's just
Full of
really
salmon.
full and having rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, lots of estuary wildlife. And then nearing the end in October, you get some of the older coho and chum and pinks flowing down the rivers, but also some of the late runs coming in as well. And in these Great Bear Rainforest trips, we also get out to the west side on the clear window for weather. Getting onto the West Coast beaches is a treat and not always weather. I mean, it is very weather dependent, and we have weather windows that we can get there. And then, as I said, the whales are coming into the fjords deeper and deeper, so we get to sometimes even chill with them at anchor. And they're doing this incredible bubble net feeding in some regions. And this is one thing that I, as a naturalist and just Maple Leaf Adventures, are looking for the experience, because these behaviors are very unique to our coast and Alaska's coast. And the hot springs, always a treat. Now, the Great Bear Rainforest trips do include a full day on an island called Gribble Island to try to see a spirit bear. This is a place that is known to have a higher concentration of spirit bears or white bears, but in no way are we promised a sighting, because they are very rare. We have a chance to go up to bear viewing stands. There's 2 sites that we frequent, and this we get given the location by a guide that we work with, and they'll tell us where we're going for our designated bear viewing day. And these trips into the forest usually take about 20 to 30, maybe 40 minutes to walk into. And the weather could be sunny, but it also could be rainy. The chances of seeing the bears are always different every season. Bears kind of hierarchy change every season as well. In the past, maybe there had been an alpha bear on the river that was a white bear, and sightings may have been higher. Recently, some of the white bears have not been alpha bears on the river, so they're a little bit less sighted. But we are in the best possible place to get a chance to see these bears. So we spend the entire day in these viewing platforms. And these platforms, they aren't always a place where it's easy to get to, but we do our best to get everybody to those locations safely. Because the terrain is very technical sometimes, depending on how much rain has fallen. But to get a chance to spend this amount of time, like a full day in this old growth forest along a river, watching species come and go, eating salmon eggs, pecking at salmon carcasses, there's a lot of things that we can see while we wait, potentially in the rain. But it's some people's absolute highlight, even if we only see a fleeting picture of a bear. The things that we see along the way that whole time are things that definitely last in your memory. Because when else are you going to sit and enjoy this incredible old growth forest and all the sights and sounds that you have with it for an entire day in one of the most remote places in the world? And yes, it could take a little while, but a sighting is worth all the time. Whether it's a black bear eating a salmon, pulling it out of the river right in front of you, or you get this very fleeting view of a white bear coming and going almost like a ghost in the forest. So that's the Great Bear Rainforest kind of bear viewing day that we do. And obviously we can answer more questions at the end about it if you have more. These are the itineraries based on different ships. So the Maple Leaf, their trips tend to be into Bella Bella, out and back again to Bella Bella. And those are 9-day itineraries. Fly back to Vancouver. And in Swell, you have a back and forth type itinerary. So they do a Bella Bella to Kitimat and then Kitimat back to Bella Bella. So each trip is, you might be starting in Kitimat and flying out of Bella Bella or flying into Bella Bella and leaving out of Kitimat. So they alternate throughout the season. And those are 9-day trips. And then Cascadia has a 8-day trip and they leave and come back out of Kitimat. And their region is a little bit different. But like I said, all of these trips tend to incorporate all the same factors: estuaries, whales, bears, potentially wolves, and outer coast and inner coast ecosystems.
And, I just want to interject here because I'm partially responsible for all these different ports and itineraries. So I want to answer. People might ask, why don't you just make them all the same? And to a certain extent, what we're trying to do is spread both the economic benefits and also the numbers of people between different coastal communities, because this area is the Great Bear Rainforest and we are proud to be part of the conservation-based economy. And so we want to work with different communities in different parts of it to benefit them and also to ensure that we're not putting a glut, say, on the air travel into one or versus another. So that's part of it. But as Jeff said, highlights are the same.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can go on about how it's very important to kind of treat the whole coast the same. And we have the privilege of being able to go to these places and bring revenue to these communities. So yeah, sharing the wealth is definitely the way. So the Kitlope River is my final one I'm going to talk about in the Great Bear Rainforest. And the Cascadia does an amazing kind of fall Kitlope super voyage trip. And this Kitlope River story starts with the Cecil Paul journey with his book, The Magic Canoe. It is a very special journey, one that talks about his kind of journey through life and how this place saved him, but he also saved this place. The Kitlope is this incredible intact temperate rainforest, but it's also the biggest intact temperate rainforest ecosystem on the planet. And it's been saved for future generations because of Cecil and all that helped him out.
He liked to say it was the biggest intact temperate rainforest in the universe.
In the universe, I should have started that. And it's true.
Yeah.
And this place is incredible. The fjord is inland. We go quite far inland, so we can start seeing more kind of mainland species of plants, but also potentially animals. But also big mountains, big granite walls, big cracks in the walls. But the scenery just gets more vast, and the cultural history here as a journey, as a story, is a really lucky one that we can follow along and show you. So along with that book and Cecil's story, we get to these incredible mountain ranges, estuaries, and chances to get out even more intimately in kayaks with this incredible vast landscape in the background. So this region is within the Great Bear Rainforest trips, but the Kitlope Super Voyage spends a little bit more time up the Huxtua or Gardner Canal, and that's the one that kind of is highlighted in green, and you can see how far inland it goes. It's the biggest fjord system in BC, longest inland as well, and that's on Cascadia in August, closer to the end of August. And yeah, then you fly back to Kitimat. I'm gonna pass it off to Maureen.
Great. All right. So we're into the final stretch of fall, if you like. In Maple Leaf Adventures, Kevin likes to say we follow spring north and we follow autumn south. Autumn comes to the south coast later than it comes to the north coast. And after the middle of October, when the storms are really increasing on the north coast or potentially increasing, we bring the ships down into the southern inside passage to the south coast of British Columbia. That starts at Cape Caution, and we explore this incredible place. So we have a couple of itineraries in the northern part, Desolation Sound and Fjords of BC, and a brand new little 5-day one on Maple Leaf just in Desolation Sound. So we'll quickly look at that. These are the Desolation Sound and Fjords of BC trips, which happen on Swell and Cascadia. And this is such an incredible passageway that is a historic waterway for people for millennia, also for settlers and people like us in the last, up until about, 70, 80 years ago when the highways started being the way we traveled up Vancouver Island. This is the traditional route for travel for people on this coast. And it's wonderful because it's also got little back doors, as you can see, as you go down from the Broughton Archipelago at the beginning, where we explore those, a couple hundred islands, come down Johnston Strait, and then we take some of the back doors through the Discovery Islands, off the inside passage into Desolation Sound and into Toba Inlet, into the Klahoose territory there, before we come back out of Desolation Sound and hit the Northern Gulf Islands on our route to disembarking in Nanaimo. So it's a real odyssey through the parts of British Columbia that are spectacular, beautiful natural areas that are actually relatively close to populated areas and yet inaccessible by car, which makes them pretty special. This is just another little route that shows the Maple Leaf 5-day trip in the area. So it's just got the Desolation Sound, Toba Inlet portion of the trip as well in the fall. So again, we start in the Broughton Archipelago, which is the southern end of the Great Bear Rainforest, filled with islands, crammed up against the mainland inlets there. And at this time, Falls Bounty is incredible. The seabirds are coming through and the whales are gorging, just as Jeff mentioned before. We also have a real relationship with the Marine Education and Research Society in the region, who's been documenting a very special feeding behavior for whales who think about energy budgets, and they just hang in the water vertically and open their mouths and use their fins to flip and scare the fish into their mouths. So none of this bubble net feeding complex swimming around and blowing bubbles and stuff. They just hang in the water, and we have a pretty good opportunity to see this very special feeding technique. We also have relationships with the Namgis at Alert Bay, and we have some private guided tours at Umistic Cultural Center here. Alert Bay is a very special place to visit because they recently got rid of the residential school, and there's some really good interpretive pieces there for people who are really interested in reconciliation. The islands give us plenty of opportunity for exploring, beautiful cruising, kayaking, and hikes in to explore the rainforest. As we head down through those back doors, through tidal rapids, and explore the Discovery Islands, we then hit Toba Inlet and the spectacular granite walls of the fjords of British Columbia, where we might have a chance to view some fall grizzlies that are waiting around for salmon. This is just a piece of a chart that just shows some of the tidal rapids. If you read, a dangerous whirlpool forms over the 6'4" shoal on large tides. So we try to actually get you to experience that. And then down into the northern portion of the Salish Sea, where you can see the more Mediterranean climate begin. So that's those trips. And they're a wonderful trip to take in the fall, especially if you don't want to make the trek up north. They start in either Port Hardy or Port McNeill and finish in Nanaimo. And the Maple Leaf ones are Campbell River to Campbell River return. So you can even drive to those if you are starting out from Vancouver or Victoria. And finally, we finished the year off in the Salish Sea, which is the body of water between Vancouver Island, Seattle, Vancouver, and all the way up to Desolation Sound. It's a protected ring of beautiful islands surrounded by snow-capped mountains in protected waters with a more Mediterranean climate. And we do several different itineraries here, but generally we're going in a circle around these islands, especially visiting islands that are off the ferry route that might be still in their natural state. And the wonderful thing about traveling at this time of year in the islands is there's no other boaters and tourists around. Amazingly, we have these incredible areas to ourselves. The marine mammals, of course, same thing. They're hanging around for the salmon and herring that they're eating. And there's just plenty of wildlife, migrating birds. We are on the Pacific Flyway here. And it's not all sunny. There are rainy days too, but all of these pictures are from our Fall Gulf Islands trips. We have a chance to explore the different territories from white shell midden beaches, rocky bluffs, coastal rainforest, old historic homesteads, you name it, we can explore it here in the Gulf Islands. So 3 itineraries and we're done. The Gulf Islands National Park Reserve is the focus of the trips on our sailing ship, the Maple Leaf, which is the natural history and the sailing between them. So just a couple of images for you of that. If you want more details, you can talk to Mikhail and Kiara about that. Cascadia, we do one of our culinary and nature adventures, Wines and Islands, where we have special tours and meals with the winemakers that are making this region known. It's cool climate wine, but people are doing really inventive and wonderful things influenced by the terroir and the merroir, or the ocean influence that affects all of us on the coast, and also the flavor of our food and our beverages. So here's just a few images from that. There's even wineries that we can walk out of our boats and up into the vineyards to do our tasting at. And finally, the craft beer cruise on Swell is a very similar culinary trip where we're celebrating the flavors and the inspiration of the coast in the food and the bounty of the agriculture, as well as the art of brewmaking, combined with exploring in nature on Swell. And so here's just a couple of pictures of that as well. And quickly, the location of these trips, in case you were wondering. Now we're into the home stretch of the presentation. Thank you, Jeff. We'll take you on a whirlwind tour through the ships so you can see what your life aboard might be like, and then we'll run down into questions. So we have 3 ships, one for every taste, as we like to say. Cascadia has 12 spacious cabins, and she's a 138-foot catamaran that was custom made in New Zealand for small boutique tourism. She has beautiful lounge areas and lots of light, really comfortable, amazing to just sit here and enjoy, and yet lots of windows and outdoor spaces as well to enjoy our surroundings in. We have log table dining either outside or inside, a full incredible chef's galley, and lots of deck space to enjoy the natural world. On all our ships, we have open wheelhouses or open bridges, depending on the size, and your guests are always welcome to hang out with the navigators. Cascadia has a beautiful 360-degree view from her hot tub. She has a fleet of kayaks and incredibly beautiful cabins for a small boat on this coast. This is one of the larger cabins with a king-size bed at Category 3. They also have doors onto the deck. These are Category 2s, again with doors. Every cabin has its own ensuite washroom with heated floors, of course. And these are the very, very spacious Category 1 cabins. So these are the smaller cabins. Maple Leaf is our original ship. She's the flagship and the spirit of the company. She is a 92-foot schooner that was built in 1904 and is actually one of BC's heritage vessels. We take 8 guests on her. And she's an absolute joy for people that, you know, can align with a Jimmy Buffett song, who want to lean on the sails and feel the ocean around them all the time. This is the ship for you. Cozy wheelhouse, again, where you're very welcome to be in. A dining lounge with a little library combined. Amazing food. Kevin likes to call it summer camp for adults because you have all that good things about camp, but we have a chef and comfortable accommodations on board instead. The accommodations are more like a traditional tall ship. You have heavy curtains on two sides, and a queen size bed or two doubles depending on your needs. And a few shared heads. And then Swell's our third ship. She's also one of BC's heritage vessels, a classic tugboat built in 1912 in Vancouver, and she has 6 cozy little cabins. She's a real lovely workboat and lovingly updated to respect that heritage while also providing comfort and access to our natural world. And she has a little 4-person hot tub. So these are the largest cabins, category 3. They're about 135 square feet, I think. All with every single cabin, again, has its own ensuite washroom with shower, which is pretty amazing for a boat that size. And we have mid-sized cabins, category 2, and then this is our little category 1 cabin, which has all the essentials and nothing else. Briefly, do you want to talk a little bit about the food people can expect?
Oh, I like to talk about the food because I'm always in competition with the galley to give guests a better experience than the culinary part. But it's really hard to compete because the amazing food that comes out of these galleys, I just don't see it disappointing. The chefs are incredible at their jobs, and the creativity that they express is reflected in the taste that you're gonna have in your meals. We were a winner of the Culinary Tourism Award recently this year, and it just highlights that we pull our food from locally sourced and responsible agriculture and fishing. So these are just a few pictures. Try not to salivate. And on your keyboard. But yeah, we have a range of foods of all different protein types and vegetarian options that just tickle the senses. I won't go any further.
And I know we're getting tight on time here, so I just want to say one thing that it's hard for us to explain this before people have traveled, but we always hear about it at the end, which is it's the crew that make the trip. People come for the place, they may come from the ship, but the crew are the ones that make their trip, because these crew are your personal like guides and friends and fully engaged in your holiday, unlike some kinds of holidays where they might hide away from you. They're also experts at what they do, whether they're mariners or naturalists or scientists, hospitality professionals or chefs, and they're always available to talk to you. They love showing you the coast. And one question we often get is, what's the temperature like? So here's a quick, I'm not going to go through it, but check it out quickly here. And we can send you this slide if you'd like later on. So you can see it's actually still quite comfortable in the fall on the coast. I don't think we have time to go into this, but it's really important to us to be part of a conservation-based economy. And Maple Leaf Adventures, having been around for almost 40 years, has been involved in some major efforts to protect this coast and also to promote a conservation-based economy at the same time. And I'll just leave it at that for today. Yeah. Here's our schedule. Again, don't have time to go through it all, but take a quick glance and then we can send you a recording and you can go back to this slide if you like, with our all-inclusive prices in Canadian dollars. If you are watching from the States, I think you can take about 25 to 30% off that to convert it into USD. I think this is, just give us a call, contact us by email, message us on Facebook, whatever you like. Kiara and Mikhail are here to help you answer questions and decide if the trip is right for you, and if so, which one. Once you booked, there's a lot of welcome aboard information, suggested packing list and details that we'll provide you, and or always here for questions, of course, as well. And then for those of you who've attended, we have a special offer. If you're already booked for a trip this year, you can use this for next year or the year after. And if you haven't, then you can use this for the fall. Again, we'll send this information out. You don't need to scribble it down right now. You'll get an email from us afterwards. And there are other special offers that are still valid for some of these fall trips. So we encourage you to check out the website and see if there's one that works for you. And for 2026 trips, we have some that are valid already as well. And in case you didn't know, this is how you can get a hold of us. And finally, if you're interested, right now you apparently can click your screen and get a virtual tour walking around inside the ships here. So if you want to just click it and open those web pages and come back, you can. And we'll obviously send these out in the post-trip email as well. And thank you for your attention. And now we really hope there's a few questions for us to answer.
Yeah, we know there's a lot of information thrown at you right now.
Yeah, so we'll try to figure out how to find the questions, and we might need to call Maureen in to help. Are they up there? There they are. Okay. This is where I have to run up to the screen in order to read them.
Is there a supplement for single travelers?
I'll answer that. There's on some trips, there's a special offer where there's no single supplement. Some of those Desolation Sound, Fjords of BC trips, Wines and Islands Craft Beer Cruise, I think have those where you can have a cabin as a solo traveler without a single supplement. Because the boats are small, each guest makes a huge difference, and the boats are expensive for us to maintain. All the Maple Leaf trips have no single supplement because you're always sharing with a roommate. And then on some of the Cascadia and Swell trips, there is a 50% single supplement. And Kiara and Mikhail can help you with those details. Can I share this video with friends who might join? Absolutely. We will be sending you a link in the follow-up email to a recording of this. So that way you can fast forward to the parts that you're not interested in as well. And does the price include air travel? Generally, it does not include air travel. Check our website for certain trips where that's different. That's probably the best answer that I have right now. And then I think there's a question about, can we fish? Yes. There are some trips where it's easier to do than others. Maple Leaf is really well set up for fishing. You just need to get a fishing license. We don't focus on fishing, obviously, because usually that means staying in one place for a long time, which is what people are there for. We do encourage people to do fishing charters if that's what they want, but there are, if you have a fishing license and your crew know, we do have gear on board, and there are places to drop a line, especially for, things like ling cod or rockfish, or if you're really lucky at halibut. Get a salmon tag though, because you might accidentally catch a salmon on the way up. That does happen occasionally. Yeah, and I think.
Just going to check the chat in case there are any questions in there.
Do you offer Alaska? Yes, we do offer Alaska trips, and we are going to do an Alaska webinar this summer. It's such a big area that they're longer trips that we wanted to do it in a single session. So stay tuned for that. And
I don't know whether you can hear me. I don't know whether I've raised my hand or not, but I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Sure, we can hear you.
You spoke at the beginning about people who are perhaps less physically mobile than others and staying on the ship all the time. I can get about, but I can't do long walks. So could you say a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start and then you can add to that, Jeff, if you like. So what we say is our trips are for people of all different ages. And the most important physical criteria are whether you can get on and off the ship, in and out of our shore boats, and up and down whatever you need to get up and down on the boat. So you don't need to be able to walk long distances. And in fact, many of our shore trips have options to just move with a naturalist along the beach or on a forest trail. So that's the minimum kind of requirement to be able to do the trip. Jeff, do you want to?
Yeah, and I primarily work on Cascadia now, and it's got a large platform for just a range of different mobility types. So Cascadia has this great vantage point of getting onto the tenders from a flat surface onto a flatter boat. And then even if your thing isn't to go on shore, we can do and provide tender toodles, we call them, or tender cruises. While people are on shore, you get a different vantage point that is along the shoreline and maybe poking into the little crevices here and there. So that's one option when people are ashore. So we're always trying to make sure the experience is still kept as much as you physically can. So, for instance, the bear viewing in the Great Bear Rainforest, that would require a good physical ability to get into the forest and out again.
At the Spirit Bear.
At the Spirit Bear location.
So
yeah, I would say the Great Bear Rainforest is heavily boat-based with small trips on shore, except when it's the Spirit Bear viewing. That is an actual walk into the forest. Otherwise, the rest of the trip, we're accessing the estuaries by boat. We're going along the shores and to the beaches by boat. And yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we have two different kinds of shore boats too. On Maple Leaf and Swell, we have boats that are like Zodiacs, rigid hull inflatable. So to get out of them, you need to sit on the side, swing your legs over and stand up with a crew member there. To the landing craft on Cascadia, have a bow that goes down. You can kind of walk off with the help of a crew guide, a crew member. So, yeah. Where do the trips start? Where to fly to? So generally, we start the trips in the area that we're exploring. This means we don't waste time transiting from one area to another. And again, we're supporting local economies. The Desolation Sound trips start on Vancouver Island. The Sail of Sea trips start on Vancouver Island. And the Great Bear Rainforest trips start in the Great Bear. So either Bella Bella or Kitimat typically. We provide a lot of information to help you out with that. It sounds kind of scary, but it's actually quite simple because there's regularly scheduled flights there. Some of the trips you can also drive to, and we have information about that. And Mikhail and Kiara in the office are really great at helping on that. I think we've managed to find all of the questions. If we miss yours, just drop us an email. And I want to thank you all for coming and for your questions. And please let us know if we can help you further. Thank you.
Thank you.